They left me here. No calls. No visits. Just silence. I thought my family had erased me from their lives, until the day my daughter walked in, holding a letter I never thought she'd see. What happened next changed everything. Before we dive into this emotional journey, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us of the power of second chances. The Forgotten Letters. My name is Evelyn Carter, and this is not how I thought my life would turn out. I stare at the same pale yellow walls every morning, the color of old newspaper left too long in the sun. The nurses here at Willowbrook Nursing Home are kind enough, but kindness isn't love. It isn't family. And family, well, family was supposed to be the one thing I could count on. My daughter, Claire, used to visit me every Sunday without fail. She'd bring me those awful sugar-free muffins I pretended to like, just because she remembered I once said I was watching my diet. We'd sit in the courtyard, her telling me about work, about her husband, about anything and everything. And then, slowly, like a leaky faucet dripping away, those visits became shorter. Then they became phone calls. Then the calls became texts, short, rushed, always ending with, "I'll call you soon, Mom." And then nothing. At first, I made excuses for her. She's busy. She has her own life. She'll remember. But weeks turned into months, and the silence grew heavier. I stopped checking my phone. Stopped waiting. That's when I started writing the letters. Not angry ones. Not the kind that scream, "How could you abandon me?" No, these were softer. Gentler. Memories of her as a little girl. How she used to laugh when I made pancakes shaped like hearts. How she'd clutch my hand on her first day of school. How she'd sneak into my bed during thunderstorms. I wrote them all down, one after another, as if putting them on paper would keep them alive. But I never sent them. What was the point? If she didn't care enough to call, why would she care about my words? So I tucked them away in the drawer of my nightstand, stacking them neatly, like secrets I was too afraid to tell. Then came the day Nurse Marlene found me crying in the common room. I hadn't meant to break down in front of anyone. I was good at hiding it, smiling when the staff asked how I was, nodding when other residents complained about their own families. But that day, something cracked. Maybe it was the sound of another resident's granddaughter laughing as she hugged her goodbye. Maybe it was the way the sunlight hit the empty chair beside me, the one Claire used to fill. Marlene sat next to me, her hand warm on my shoulder. "Evelyn," she said softly, "what's hurting you?" I didn't answer at first. Then, without meaning to, I whispered, "I just miss her." She didn't ask who. She already knew. Later, when she walked me back to my room, she paused at my nightstand. "What's in here?" she asked, nodding toward the drawer. I hesitated. Then, with a shaky breath, I pulled it open. Marlene's eyes scanned the letters, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "Evelyn, what if she needs to hear these words?" I shook my head. "She doesn't want them." "How do you know?" I had no answer. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Marlene's question echoing in my mind. What if she needs to hear these words? Before I could talk myself out of it, I sat up, pulled out a single letter. The one about Claire's 5th birthday, the day she fell off her bike and I carried her home, her tears soaking into my shirt. I slipped it into an envelope, sealed it, and wrote her address with trembling hands. The next morning, I gave it to Javier, the young aide who always had a kind word for everyone. "Can you mail this for me?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled. "Of course, Mrs. Carter." As I watched him walk away with it, a knot twisted in my stomach. What if she never read it? What if she did? And just like that, I was waiting again. The silence before the storm. The days after mailing that letter stretched into an eternity. At first, I told myself not to expect anything. Claire hadn't responded to my calls or texts in months. Why would a letter be any different? But as much as I tried to bury the hope, it flickered inside me like a stubborn candle refusing to be snuffed out. Every time the phone rang in the hallway, my heart leapt. Every time a staff member walked past my door, I held my breath, waiting for them to say, "Evelyn, your daughter's here." But she never came. The letter had been a mistake. That's what I decided by the end of the first week. I'd let Marlene's kindness trick me into believing words on paper could change anything. Claire had moved on and I needed to do the same. Then, on the 10th day, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in the courtyard, wrapped in my old knitted shawl, the one Claire had given me for Mother's Day years ago, when Javier, the aide who'd mailed my letter, approached me. His usual easy smile was gone, replaced by something hesitant. "Mrs. Carter," he said, shifting his weight. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" The way he said it sent a chill through me. "Is something wrong?" He glanced around, as if making sure no one was listening. "It's about your daughter." My hands clenched around the arms of my chair. "What about her?" I think I know her." The world tilted. "What?" He sat beside me, his voice low. "I work part-time at a coffee shop downtown. Blue Haven over on Elm? Your daughter comes in sometimes." My throat tightened. Claire had always loved coffee shops. She used to drag me to them every weekend when she was in high school, insisting we try whatever new latte was trending. The thought that she still went, that some part of her routine hadn't changed, made my chest ache. "Is she okay?" I managed to ask. Javier hesitated. "She always looks sad, like she's carrying something heavy." He paused, then added, "A few months ago, she left behind a stack of envelopes. One of them had your name on the return address." The breath left my lungs. She had my letters? Not just one. Several. I felt dizzy. All this time, I'd thought she wasn't answering because she didn't care. But if she had my letters and never opened them, that was worse. That meant she'd chosen to ignore me. Did she ever read them? I whispered. Javier shook his head. Not while I was there. But last week, she came in looking different. Upset. She sat in the corner for hours, just staring at an envelope in her hands. When she left, she was crying. A storm of emotions raged inside me. Anger, confusion, a desperate, clawing hope. Did she say anything?
No, but...
He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She dropped this. With trembling fingers, I took it. It was a receipt, crumpled and coffee-stained. But on the back, in Claire's familiar handwriting, were 2 words. "I'm sorry." I traced the letters with my fingertip, my vision blurring. Why had she written this? What had changed? And then, the most terrifying question of all. Was it too late? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Javier's words in my head. Claire had my letters. She'd had them for months. And now, finally, she'd opened one.
But why?
What had made her look at them now, after all this time? The next morning, I made a decision. If Claire was finally ready to listen, I needed to make sure she heard everything. I pulled out every unsent letter I'd written and spread them across my bed. Years of memories, apologies, and love poured onto paper. Then, one by one, I began to read them aloud to the empty room, as if she were sitting right beside me. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself hope. The truth in the coffee shop. The receipt with Claire's scribbled, "I'm sorry," burned a hole in my pocket for days. I carried it with me everywhere, like a secret talisman. Every time my fingers brushed against it, I wondered, what had she meant? Was she sorry for not reading my letters? For leaving me here? For letting so much time slip away between us? Javier's words haunted me. She always looked sad. I needed to see her. Not through a letter, not through someone else's description. Her. My daughter. So, I did something reckless. I asked Javier for the exact address of Blue Haven Coffee. Then, on a Thursday morning when the nursing home staff was busy with a new batch of residents arriving, I put on my best sweater, the one Claire had given me 2 Christmases ago, and I slipped out. The walk was longer than I remembered. My knees ached, and my breath came in short, sharp bursts, but I didn't stop. Not even when the drizzle turned into rain, soaking through my thin coat. The coffee shop was exactly as Javier had described, cozy, warm, the smell of roasted beans thick in the air. My heart hammered as I pushed open the door, the bell jingling overhead. And then I saw her. Claire sat in the far corner, her back to me, hunched over a laptop. Her hair was shorter now, darker than I remembered, but I'd know the slope of her shoulders anywhere. I stood frozen in the doorway, suddenly unsure. What if she didn't want to see me? What if she turned me away? Before I could decide whether to approach her, a barista called out, "Ma'am, are you okay?"
Claire turned.
Our eyes met. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Her face went pale, her lips parting in shock. Then, slowly, she stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "Mom," that one word, her voice cracking on it, nearly brought me to my knees. I took a step forward, then another. She didn't move, didn't run, just stared at me like I was a ghost. When I was close enough to touch her, I saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands trembled. Javier was right. She looked exhausted, hurt. "You got my letter," I said softly. Her breath hitched. "Just the one." "There were more." "I know." She swallowed hard. "I just couldn't read them." "Why?" She looked away, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. "Because I knew they'd break me." The confession hung between us, raw and aching. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, she added, "He told me you didn't want to talk to me." Ice flooded my veins. "Who?" "Mark. Her husband." The room tilted. "What?" Claire's eyes were glassy, with unshed tears. "He said you called him. Said you told him you needed space. That I was too much." The words were a knife to my chest. "I never said that. I never even spoke to him." Her face crumpled. "But the letters, he gave them to me months ago. Said you'd mailed them to him by mistake, that you didn't mean for me to see them." Realization crashed over me like a wave. He'd intercepted them. He'd lied. "Claire," I whispered, reaching for her hand. "I would never turn you away. Never." She flinched at my touch, but she didn't pull back. And then, for the first time in years, my daughter let me hold her as she cried. The knock at the door. The rain fell harder as we sat in that coffee shop, the weight of years of misunderstandings pressing down on us. Claire's hands shook around her coffee cup, her knuckles white. I wanted to reach out, to pull her close like I did when she was little and skinned her knees, but the space between us felt fragile, like one wrong move might shatter whatever thin thread still connected us. "He told me you were angry," Claire whispered, staring into her half-empty cup. "That you blamed me for Dad's death." The words knocked the air from my lungs. My husband, her father, had passed 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack. I never once blamed her. Never even thought it. "Oh, Claire," I said, my voice breaking.
"No."
"Never." She looked up at me then, her eyes red-rimmed and searching, like she was trying to decide whether to believe me. "Then why didn't you call? Why did you stop reaching out?" "I did call," I said, my chest tightening. "At first, every day. Then every week. You never answered. I thought you needed space." Her face crumpled. "Mark said you'd changed your number. He showed me texts, messages supposedly from you saying you needed time. But it wasn't your number. I didn't realize." A cold fury settled in my stomach. How long had this been going on? How many times had he lied to her?
"To me?"
I reached across the table, gripping her hand. "Claire, listen to me. I would never shut you out. Never." For a long moment, she was silent. Then, in a voice so small it nearly broke me, she said, "I missed you, Mom." That was all it took. The dam broke. Tears streamed down both our faces as the truth settled between us. Not anger, not blame, just grief for all the time we'd lost. When the rain slowed, Claire helped me into her car, the same little blue sedan she'd had in college, now with a dent on the passenger side and coffee stains on the console. Familiar. Her. She didn't take me back to Willowbrook. Instead, she drove to her apartment, a place I'd never seen. It was small, cluttered with books and half-finished art projects, the walls covered in framed photos, but none of me. None of our family. "He's gone," she said abruptly as she set my bag down.
"Mark."
"I kicked him out last night, after I read your letter." I didn't know what to say. So I just hugged her, holding on tight like I could somehow make up for all the years we'd lost. That night, we sat on her couch, wrapped in blankets, going through the stack of letters I'd brought. Every unsent word, every memory, every I love you I'd thought she'd never hear. She cried when she read the one about her 5th birthday, laughed through tears at the one about the time she tried to cut her own bangs before picture day. And then, near the bottom of the pile, she found the most recent one, the one I'd written but never sent. The one that simply said, "Claire, no matter how much time passes, no matter what's happened, my door is always open. My heart is always yours. Come home." She looked at me, her face raw with emotion. "I'm here now," she whispered. And for the first time in years, I believed it. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through her curtains, there was a knock at the door. Claire, still bleary-eyed from our late-night talking, shuffled to answer it. I heard her sharp inhale before she spoke. "What are you doing here?" My stomach dropped. I knew before I even turned. Mark stood in the doorway, his expression dark. "We need to talk." Claire's spine straightened.
No.
"We don't." But he stepped forward, his eyes locking onto mine. He spat. "You just couldn't leave it alone, could you?" Claire moved between us, her voice steady in a way I'd never heard before. "Get out."
Now.
For a heartbeat, I thought he might argue. Then, with a glare, he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. Claire's shoulders sagged, but when she turned to me, her eyes were clear. "I'm done letting him control my life," she said. "And I'm done staying away from you." It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still conversations to be had, apologies to make, years to make up for. But as I pulled her into another hug, I realized something. This wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning. If this story reminded you of someone you've lost touch with, don't wait. Reach out. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, it's never too late for a second chance.